Hey, Slater Crusaders. America's the greatest country in the world. Thanks for being here. We're going to talk about Afghanistan today, give you the latest. I want to start off with a video here of American service members touring a hangar at the airport full of American helicopters. Here.
Oh. All right. We're here right now with the Taliban as they enter into what was only minutes ago, it was an American-controlled portion of the military airport. Now they're taking over.
What? That's the who? That's the Taliban wearing our stuff, carrying our guns, checking out our gear, touring our helicopters, billions of dollars worth. I left yesterday, a glimmer of redemptive hope for Joe Biden. I don't know why, I'm just desperate for some hope. I left a little sliver of hope that maybe Biden on the way out would drop a bomb and blow up all of our equipment that we left behind so that we don't leave the Taliban with everything. Joe Biden himself, like a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, said that the Afghan army is one of the most well-equipped armies in the world. Well, now the Taliban is one of the most well-equipped armies in the world. They got the biggest jackpot in the history of military conquest. It's not an exaggeration. They got the biggest jackpot in the history of military conquest. And we just let them with no effort at all to stop it. It is so insane. So now all the service members are gone. All of our American service members are gone. But at least we got every American citizen out. That's the important thing, right? No American left behind. It's more than just a trite little saying here in America. We believe in that firmly, deeply, profoundly, to our core. We'll do anything. Just ask Bo Bergdahl. We'll do everything to make sure we never leave an American behind. Right? 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 This is Joe Biden last week.
All troops are supposed to be out by August 31st. Even if Americans and our Afghan allies are still trying to get out, they're going to leave?
We're going to do everything in our power to get all Americans out and our allies out.
Does that mean troops will stay beyond August 31st if necessary?
It depends on where we are and whether we can ramp these numbers up to 5,000 to 7,000 a day coming out. If that's the case, they'll all be out.
Because we've got like 10 to 15,000 Americans in the country right now, right? And are you committed to making sure that the troops stay until every American who wants to be out is out?
Yes.
But if we don't, the troops will stay.
If we don't, we'll determine at the time who's left.
And
if there are American forces, if there's American citizens left, we're going to stay till we get them all out.
We didn't, by the way. Biden kept his promise to the Taliban to get out of Afghanistan by August 31st. He kept his promise to the Taliban. He broke his promise to the American people, to American citizens and special immigrant visa holders. Broke the promise to them. And all of this is going to be framed like a great success. Here's USA Today talking about how we met the deadline. Wow, that's amazing. We met, hey, congratulations, everyone. We met the deadline. Hooray for us. Hooray for Biden. We met the deadline. Fantastic. Bummer, though, that we met the deadline, which resulted in leaving Americans behind to die. Ugh. But we met the deadline. Now, the State Department is admitting that the number is 300. Now, they're making that up. They have no idea how many. We have no idea how many American citizens were there, are there. No clue. They just made the number 300 up. They're saying, well, here's McKenzie. Here's the top general head of CENTCOM.
Your message to Americans and Afghan allies who were left behind?
So the military phase of this operation is ended. The diplomatic sequel to that will now begin. And I believe our Department of State is going to work very hard to allow any American citizens that are left. And we think the citizens that were not brought out number in the low, very low hundreds.
Oh, yeah. Very, very low hundreds. There's just very low hundreds of Americans we left behind. Never leave an American behind. But if you do, make sure it's in the very low hundreds. Because then we'll just negotiate very hard to get you back, right? Like anyone believes that for a second. So leave no man behind. Okay, what's not no man? So you can't leave no man behind. Sometimes you're going to leave people behind, but make sure it's just very low hundreds of them. That's the American way. That's America. Very low hundreds. Imagine being that person, that American citizen who was left behind. First of all, being told that, well, you never really wanted to leave. That's the first thing. Like you didn't want to leave badly enough. But also, don't worry. We may have left you behind. But we only left behind a very low hundreds of people. That's all. You saw that last plane going out of Afghanistan? Last plane taken off. All right, imagine you're an American citizen. You see that last plane going off. How would you feel? Well, no, you shouldn't feel bad. You should feel fine because we only left behind very low hundreds of people. That's all. Very low hundreds. Insane. And it's going to be, again, it's going to be framed as a success. And that's just American citizens. It's more than that, by the way, but that's just American citizens. This is the New York Times. The New York Times says, but that leaves behind at least 100,000 people, at least, and possibly many more who might be eligible for an expedited U.S. visa now find themselves in Afghanistan under the complete control of the Taliban. Many fear they are at immediate risk of being killed by the Taliban. Yeah, you think? Now, this number that Biden keeps talking about, 117,000 people. We've evacuated 117,000 people. That number is a lie. That is a lie. That is an intentionally misleading number. Here's the deal. Ready? Share this with everyone you know. That number includes the number of people that all countries have evacuated. They call it the coalition number. So that's the number of people that Germany, France, England, Belgium, you name it, all the countries evacuated. Not just America. And it also includes all the people that private groups evacuated. We've talked a lot on the show lately about Task Force Pineapple and Commercial Task Force, who got people out in spite of the American military, in spite of the American government. And we've talked to those groups and people who know those groups, and they've all said the biggest hurdle wasn't the Taliban. The biggest hurdle was our government. So that 170,000 number, that's bunk. That's nonsense. That's not true. That's intentionally misleading. The true number that the American military evacuated is somewhere between 60 and 70,000. Not 117,000, but 60 to 70,000. Now, of that 60 and 70,000, we know nothing about them. We know nothing about them at all. How many of those were citizens? How many of those were special immigrant visa holders? I don't know. No one knows. They're not saying. And all of it, again, all of it is because of August 31st, a stupid, meaningless August 31st deadline that we have to honor because of the Taliban. Joe Biden said we have to honor this because we got to keep our word. Got to keep our word. We're only, our country, we're only as good as our word. Got to keep our word to the Taliban. Yeah, Joe, keep your word. The same word that says never leave a man behind. And the same word that we gave to the Afghans who helped us for 20 years. That we're going to get you to safety. That word, same word. We can break it to them, but we got to keep it to the Taliban. Did you see this happening 20 years ago? It's so infuriating and it's so surreal. It would be one thing for the U.S. government to do the bidding of China. We already do, and that day's coming even harder, right? And as I say, it's one thing because China has leverage over us. China has leverage over us. They have leverage over the world. We talk about it all the time. China builds these ports and 5G networks and trade deficits and buying our debt and all these other things. And they have leverage. And they say, hey, you have to do this or you can't do that. Otherwise, we're going to take this away. But China has leverage, right? All of our medicines are made of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Farmers, there's one drug I'm thinking of. Anyway, they make all of our medicine over there in China. So they can be like, hey, you have to do what we say. Otherwise, we're not going to give you our these drugs anymore. Okay, they have leverage. China has leverage. So it makes sense that we would do the bidding of China. Why are we doing the bidding of the Taliban? They have no leverage over us. Or at least we gave them all the leverage that we would have. There's a retired special ops guy. Antibiotics. That was the word I was looking for. They make almost all of our antibiotics. There's a retired special ops guy who has been on the ground getting people out of, getting American citizens out of Afghanistan. And he says there are buses full of American citizens that can't get to the airport. We're going to play an interview with one of those citizens who are coming up. Here's what the guy says. He says the stats that they are pushing, that's Joe Biden and the government, on the news are false. There are many more American citizens who want to escape but have no option because our own government keeps halting all actions. We who are trying to save these people have run into roadblock after roadblock. Glenn Beck has said the same thing, right? He's working with this group to save Afghan Christians. And he said the biggest hurdle was our own State Department. We talked to Mark Geist yesterday. He was in the Battle of Benghazi. He said the exact same thing. I asked him, I said, what's the biggest hurdle for the guys that are over there? He said, we are, the American government. We got two great guests coming up, so I'm going to do two short segments here before we get to them. I don't believe anything anymore. I don't believe anything. My trust, I'll speak for myself, I don't know where you stand on this. My trust in our institutions, even our U.S. military, is rock bottom. I don't know how it can't get worse. I don't know how it could possibly get worse when everything they say, I assume you're lying. To the point where when the U.S. government says we fired a drone strike and we killed a terrorist, my first thought is, no, you didn't. It's not even trust but verify. It's like, no, you're lying. You didn't do that. And then even once that's proved, oh no, look, we dropped a bomb. My first thought is, yeah, you're probably on some innocent people. You probably dropped a bomb on some innocent people, and now you're taking credit for killing some high-level target. And it seems like that's what happened with the drone strike. They're saying either 9 or 10 people killed, and 6 or 7 of them were kids, little kids, 2 to 10 years old. No proof that the adults that were killed were terrorists or soon-to-be terrorists or members of ISIS or anything. We don't have any names, nothing. They're not releasing anything. They've given us nothing. So what are we to think? Oh, you deserve our trust? This is crazy because in 2001, really from 2001 to 2019, I would have believed everything the government said. If our government, especially our military, if our military said we dropped a bomb on a high-level target, I'd be like, oh, that's great. Congratulations. Good work, guys. Awesome. Now they say that, and no, you didn't. You probably dropped it on a bunch of innocent people. And you're taking credit for it now because you're all a bunch of liars. And I say until 2019 because that's when the Afghanistan papers were released in the Washington Post. You have to read them. And these were exit interviews with all the top guys, ambassadors, everyone on the ground in Afghanistan. Top guys. All of them say everything was a lie. They constantly lied. They were lying nonstop. They were lying to the president. They were lying to the American people. All of them were lying. And this is not my assessment of it. Like they say, like here's the top general of Afghanistan for 3 years. His exit interview, which was off the record until it was released 3 years later, the Washington Post, was off the record. His exit interview was, we've just been lying to the American people this whole time. All of them. They're all lying. 20 years they've been lying. And they're lying now. About that number I just gave you, the 117,000, talking about how it's a great success. That's all lies. They're all lying. They're constantly lying. This is the head of CENTCOM. He said, we're confident we successfully hit the target. Secondary explosions from the vehicle indicated the presence of a substantial amount of explosive material. I don't believe you. And this is the problem with continuing to lie to people for so long. With COVID, with Afghanistan, it's all been lies. So we can't take your word for anything anymore. And that's your fault. It's not mine. It's not ours. Coming up next, I want to talk about gratitude and some perspective and also hesitation. Those are the three words: gratitude, perspective, hesitation. What's next? True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, I've been telling you for weeks now that Afghanistan and COVID are the exact same thing, all the way down to killing dogs. You've seen the picture now of dogs in Afghanistan that we left behind that will be killed. Same thing with Australia. Remember, they're killing dogs there so that the volunteers at the local animal shelter don't have to leave their house. So to that extent, the COVID in Afghanistan are the same in so many ways, all the way down to killing dogs. Insane. All right, I got a life lesson here for you. We have no place in our brain for what it's like to be in Afghanistan. We don't know. And what we're going to see the next few days, it won't work. As your brain, people think, if they see something traumatic, it's seared in your memory forever. Right? Oh, I'll never forget. That's the expression. I'll never forget it. It'll haunt my nightmares forever. It's just seared there. Everywhere I look, everywhere, it's this horrible thing I always see. That can be true, and it can also be the opposite. It can also be something so horrific that your brain can't even comprehend it. You're seeing it, but it doesn't register because you just can't. And I think we're going to see a lot of, both of those these next few days, now that the Americans are gone, if the media decides to show them. The American people, we've been trained to think that we're oppressed here in America. So the first point I want to make in this segment is perspective. And perspective brings peace. So we got to know about perspective, peace, and gratitude. Here's one of these campus videos where they're asking women, do you think you're oppressed as a woman here in America?
Would you say that women are treated unfairly in the United States?
Yes, I would say so.
Yes. I've quit so many jobs because of the way I was treated at work.
Definitely. I think that there's a lot of institutional factors that play into that, especially when you think about just like unequal pay.
We already have a lower pay wage, even if we're overly qualified for the position.
There's still a lot of traditional, I guess you could say, perspectives on what a woman should do and what a woman shouldn't do.
Yeah, there are definitely some unfair treatment in some aspects.
Would you say that women are oppressed here?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's primarily, of course, there's the intersection of not just being a woman, but also being a woman of color or a poor woman or an immigrant.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that make it hard.
Would you say it's hard to be a woman in the United States of America?
Yeah, so hard.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
It is, yeah.
So hard. So the laughs are the tell, right? When they're like, oh yeah, so hard, definitely so hard. Intersectional, all the intersections. Talk about the pay gap that doesn't exist. I love the woman also who says I've had to quit so many jobs because of the way I've been treated. Listen, I want to get off topic here, but have you considered the possibility that maybe you stunk at your job? No one ever considers that, right? People who aren't treated the way they think they should be treated at work, and they're like, oh, I can't believe it. I don't know, maybe you're a jerk. Maybe no one likes you. That's always a possibility, right? No, not a possibility? That you just stunk at your job and your boss didn't like you because you're an entitled brat? No, it's because you're a woman. That's why it's your woman. But anyway, the subconscious laugh is the tell that they know deep down that they're being absurd. So then that interview woman, she talked to them about life in Afghanistan and what women can and cannot do and how they're killed if they go places and all this stuff. They can't go to school and all the rest. And here's the follow-up.
Obviously in other areas it's a lot worse. With that situation now that I know, obviously there's not as much as to complain about here than over there.
Do you think we have it pretty good here?
Oh, that feels like that contradicts what I say about. But it's the truth, though. That's a good question. Because you're not, you have a very fair point. We do have it better here than we do in Afghanistan in general. So I'm like, that's a good question. But I feel like it contradicts what I just said.
Do you think we have it pretty good here?
Yeah. We have it pretty good here.
Yeah. It's definitely better than how it used to be and better than a lot of other places.
I guess, yeah, I would. I mean, people aren't being like murdered just for being women on the street.
Yeah. I was going to say something like half those girls in Afghanistan would be killed if they were dropped there because they're dressed like hookers. But all of them would be killed, actually, just even the girl wearing a T-shirt right now in Afghanistan. I want to give half credit to the woman who said, that contradicts what I just said. Poor girl can't even admit she's wrong. But at least she's kind of getting there. As Bill Maher said the other day, there's a reason why Afghan women are handing their kids to us. But these students in college, from a very young age, are taught to hate their existence, hate their country, be ungrateful. They're taught to be ungrateful for everything. This makes us a worse country and more miserable people. And what that does is it sets the stage for the government to come in and say, well, just give us more power, give us more of your rights, we'll make you happy. We'll make you happy. You're not happy, we'll make you happy. That envy you have in your heart for other people, give your rights to us, we'll make that good. We'll figure that out. We'll get rid of that envy. We'll make everyone equal. And that's how that always goes. That's why they have to teach people to be ungrateful. But just a quick look at Afghanistan and life there now makes you pretty grateful. Should. Perspective brings peace. Be grateful. We live in America. Be grateful that today you're not handing your kids off to some strangers in a crowd, knowing not only will you never see them again, but you'll be killed. And you just hope that they'll live a better life. Second point of this segment is don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Just do the right thing. Read an article about the Catholic Church in Kabul, sort of. They're at the Italian embassy. And they ran an orphanage helping Afghan kids. And the nuns there were able to escape just in time. And the nuns who started this orphanage were connected to Mother Teresa. And all the stories that we've been talking about recently about Task Force Pineapple and just regular American citizens, former special op guys going out and saving Americans' lives, it reminded me of a Mother Teresa quote, because one of the biggest reasons why people don't act and people don't do the right thing is because there's a moment of hesitation that tells them they won't make a difference. Like, what's the point? What's the point? I mean, you can only do this one little thing, and it's such a big problem, so don't even do it. Right? You're just a drop in the ocean, so stop. Not even worth doing anything. And that's all the devil needs. That split second of hesitation, and then he's got you. That's it. Your instinct is to act, but then you hesitate for a moment, and then all the other excuses start flooding in, and that's the end of you acting. The devil wins. So Mother Teresa blew that argument to smithereens. She said, yeah, you may feel like you're just a drop in the ocean, but if that drop were not in the ocean, then the ocean would be less because we're missing the drop. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah. So don't stop just because you think you're only a drop. Be the drop. There's a British guy, he interviewed Mother Teresa in 1969. Malcolm Muggeridge was his name. He was an atheist when he went to see her. And then he joined the Catholic Church right after that. And he asked her this question. He said, you know, the modern man today would say that what you're doing here, Mother Teresa, it's just a flea bite. Yeah, you've helped a bunch of kids, but it's nothing compared to what needs to be done. And the modern man would say that we need some massive, giant collective government action if we're going to do anything that's really good on an effective scale. And that's what progressives have to say. Progressives have to say that. They have to mock private charity. They have to ridicule it as insignificant. They have to say and make people believe that the only real way to help people is through some giant government welfare program. And most people believe that today. Right? So where someone may be inclined to help, now enough people have been trained, no, I won't make a difference anyway. Let's just vote for big government and they'll help people. Right? That's the lie that enough people have bought. And this guy told that to Mother Teresa. And here's what Mother Teresa said. She said, I do not agree with the big way of doing things. To us, what matters is an individual, to get to love the person. And we must come in close contact with them. If we wait till we get the numbers, then we'll be lost in the numbers and we'll never be able to show that love and respect for the person. I believe in person to person. Every person is Christ for me. And since there's only one Jesus, the person is only one person in the world for me at that moment. I think of these guys from Task Force Pineapple and Commercial Task Force, these regular private citizens, former special op guys stepping up and going to Afghanistan to save people's lives. Each of them were just one guy. They had nothing to do with Afghanistan, really. They very easily could have said, well, it's not my problem. Or even, well, let me wait. Let's see what the government can do. Let's let the government figure it out. Let's let the State Department, the Defense Department figure it out. Those guys know what they're doing. And, if there's anything that I could do maybe after the fact, maybe I'll go in and do it. No, they didn't do that. Nope. The businessman guy from Naples who was at the hotel in D.C. at the time, he went down to the front desk, dropped his credit card on the counter and said, I need a banquet room. I need a conference room. And just got to work. Whatever that even means. I don't even know what that means. Get to work on evacuating 5,000 people from Kabul. He didn't hesitate. Let's be grateful for America. Part of being grateful is knowing who we are, by the way. And we used to be a people who would never leave a man behind. But be grateful. And then don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to tell people the truth. Don't hesitate to do the right thing. I'm very fascinated to see how ignorant the media chooses to keep people in the next week. Will the American people see the mass executions? Will the media show the world what's really going on? If thousands of people are killed in Afghanistan this week and the media doesn't cover it, did it even really happen? Let's be grateful and never hesitate to do the good thing. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, no man left behind, right? Well, unless it's very low hundreds. If it's very low hundreds, then it's okay. This is one of those American citizens that CNN has been talking to recently. Here she is.
I just found out that they left, and I was just silent for a little while. And I just walk around the rooms, and I saw the young kids are sleeping, and they have no clue what happened this morning, that the last flight is gone and we're left behind. It's heartbreaking to see that with all this, what's going on, no one heard us, that we are in danger and we need to be safe. It's just heartbreaking. I don't know. I just don't even know what to say to you. And I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm completely speechless. I don't know what to say, but I just can't believe no one told me that this is the last flight.
Don't worry, lady. You're just in the very low hundreds of left behind. Dan Blakely is here, author of The 20-Year War. He's done 6 deployments with the Army Rangers. Dan, how are you, bud?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm grateful you're here. Help me understand, help the rest of us civilians understand no man left behind. It's an expression we all know. What does it really mean? Should it really mean?
You know, it's part of our Ranger creed. It's part of our culture. It's part of the military ethos of, leave no man behind, leave no comrade to fall into the hands of the enemy. And it's just very unfortunate to see that no matter how many times the statements were made that we're not going to leave any Americans behind, that's clearly not the case. And it doesn't matter if it's a few hundred, a few thousand, even one. You don't leave anybody behind, no matter what.
To what extent would an Army Ranger go to not leave a man behind?
I think back to Operation Red Wings. My platoon, prior to me getting there, worked on the mission to recover the Navy SEALs that were shot down, and ultimately come to find and rescue Marcus Luttrell, the Navy SEAL that was, being harbored by a shepherd and some townsmen. And, we had platoons that walked miles and miles and miles through mountainous terrain, through known enemy locations, just to find the people that ultimately, perished in the firefights that ensued, in the helicopter that was shut down, in the initial quick reaction force that tried rescuing him. But even still, we recovered every single body. We recovered every single person that was out there. And we ultimately found Marcus Luttrell and recovered him as well. So there is no excuse. It doesn't matter. We will do what it takes to recover every person. We just have to have the decision makers give us the green light to do so. And I know there's plenty of people who would still go back to Afghanistan right now to recover every single civilian, every single American citizen to come back to the United States.
There's a moral reason to do it. What's the practical reason that we should not leave? And this is twofold too, perhaps. What's the practical reason why we shouldn't leave service members behind, like a Marcus Luttrell? And what's the reason why we shouldn't leave American citizens behind to someone like the Taliban?
The Taliban don't care. They're ruthless. No matter how much they say on the front face, as much as their PR team is trying to say that they're changing and that they're gonna, reshape Afghanistan to be more positive and give women's rights and all these other things. That's complete garbage and false. They're factionless. They do not have a centralized government. They're not going to follow by the rules of just one leader. They're very tribal. So no matter what is said, the Taliban are going to hunt down and find every American citizen and every person who potentially was in support of the United States and our allies. And ultimately, they're either going to torture them or kill them. And it's an unfortunate reality that's not talked about nearly enough to really understand the gravity of what's happening in Afghanistan, what's going to happen over the coming weeks, months, and potentially years.
So I intellectually know what you're saying is true. And we've been saying the same, but I can't truly understand it. Not like you can, with you knowing these people and being deployed and all the rest. Like, can you say it one more time? Like, why would the Taliban do these horrible things that we Americans have never experienced and can't really fathom, understand? Why are you so confident that they're going to do these terrible things to our citizens and allies?
Every American citizen, every person who believes or supports in Western ideals is a threat to their ideals, is a threat to their religious beliefs, is a threat to what they're trying to establish in Afghanistan. And ultimately, any threat that is there, they want to get rid of. I do believe to a certain extent that's why they were somewhat helping, trying to get people to the airport to get them out of Afghanistan, because ultimately, if they're not going to support their ideals, why have them in the country? But again, I go back to the other factions who just don't care about the centralized message that the Taliban are trying to stay. They're going to execute these people. Whoever is left behind is at high risk. And I cannot explain the gravity of that enough. Just how much of a risk it is to stay in Afghanistan right now if you are an American citizen or one of our allies or an interpreter or somebody that supported any of our NATO allies throughout this last 20 years. It's a severe risk to their lives.
The president and others at the top are going to call this a great success and the greatest air evacuation in history, and we got 117,000 people out and everything went wonderfully.
You can call it a success because, yes, our military was given a mission and they executed their mission. But if the mission was not defined with certain parameters to ensure that every single citizen got out, no matter what the deadline was, if we needed to push it out, whatever it is, the second you leave somebody behind, it is not mission success. Again, it's part of our ethos. It's part of the military ethos. If you're in combat arms, you never leave somebody behind, wounded, injured, killed, trapped, stranded, whatever the case may be. You do not leave them behind. And so I cannot call this mission success if we are leaving people in Afghanistan. I do know that there are efforts underway that are not talked about, that are still searching and trying to evacuate people from Afghanistan. And it is happening, but I also know the other side of it, that it is the Taliban are searching and hunting down every single person who is deemed a threat to their ideals.
What do you know about, it's twofold. First, the morale of the guys who are still serving, and then just the mental health of the veterans who have served for the last 20 years and how this has all ended.
For the people who are still serving, and even the veterans, the people who previously have served, all I can say to them is keep your head up. Do not look at the actions that have taken at the upper levels to make decisions in any way fall into your hands. There is absolutely no blame to be placed on any veteran or current service member. Our duty is to follow orders to the executives and the officers above us. Ultimately, the responsibility is going to fall into their hands. The mental health and the issues that I know many of my brothers and sisters are going through, I hope that they can lean to their left and to their right and see why they serve. They serve to be there with their brothers and sisters in arms and be there to accomplish their mission during their time on the ground. And I hope that they can lean on them again and say, this is a hard situation for me. I'm struggling right now to process this, and reach out and talk to each other and try and, band together and be that band of brothers and sisters that we were in uniform or out.
What do you think the biggest misconception is that the American people have about the last 20 years of the war in Afghanistan?
What's been frustrating to me is I've been talking for the past couple of years. Part of the reason why I wrote this book, The 20-Year War, is people have forgotten. People have forgotten about this war. They forgot that we have service members still deployed to different areas of the Middle East, in Iraq and Afghanistan, or Iraq and Syria and the Horn of Africa, still fighting the global war on terror. It hasn't ended. The war in Afghanistan didn't end. It's just people are paying attention now because this is in the news. It's what is important to them right now. And I wish people would not forget about these forgotten wars and forget about our service members that are continuing to fight overseas. I can't tell you how many times people have commented and said, I'm so glad people are, our service members are out of Afghanistan now. Now everybody can come home. That's not the case. We're still fighting wars overseas. We cannot forget about all of our service members. And so the past couple of years have been frustrating to see, people forget what's happening in the world.
It's the same theme. We can't criticize Joe Biden and Milley for leaving men behind in Afghanistan when we each are leaving our men and women behind here in America. They may be here, but if we forget about them and aren't as grateful as we should be, then we're leaving them behind in our own way. Dan Blakely, the book is The 20-Year War. Go pick it up. Dan, appreciate your service. Thank you, brother.
Of course, thank you.
An awesome day. This is what a shameful moment. Never leave a man behind. And then our head of CENTCOM general says, very low hundreds. And never forget that. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Senator Sanders, we were just talking with an Army Ranger about the travesty that is leave no man behind. Well, unless it's just very low hundreds of men, then it's okay. So we'll go from Army Ranger to a United States Marine who happens to be running for Senate in Ohio, and hopefully he wins. He's well ahead, and that's amazing. Josh Mandel. Josh, how are you, brother?
Hey, Mike, doing well.
Great to talk to you. Let's start talking about how this was entirely unnecessary. Right, and I want people to understand this. It's easy for me to say I have no military experience, right? It's easy for me to Monday morning quarterback it, but you know what could have been and how this could have been done better. So assuming we all wanted to leave, how epically disastrous was the planning and execution of all this?
Every single step, the Biden administration and his Pentagon, his woke generals failed. So let's take it back to the Trump plan. Trump had a plan to withdraw in May. In military operations, one of the things done before conducting the operation is called IPB, which is intelligence preparation of the battle space. One component of IPB is weather and terrain. In a country like Afghanistan, weather and terrain are especially important because there are certain seasons there it's just difficult to get around. For the Taliban, the springtime when Trump wanted to withdraw and had a plan to withdraw, that is not the fighting season for the Taliban. However, right now, when Biden chose to do it, we are literally right in the middle of fighting season for the Taliban. Failure number one. Second failure is, and you don't need a military experience to know this, get the American civilians out before you pull out the American troops. Because if you do it in the opposite order, you end up with the disaster of what we have now, where there's hundreds of American citizens who are, essentially on a kill list of the Taliban, and the Taliban is now going to be in a race to hunt them down before the U.S. government can evacuate them. So failure number two. Failure number three, the fact that Biden and his woke generals abandoned Bagram Air Base. Arguably the worst decision in the history of commander-in-chief military decisions in the history of this country. Air superiority, just common sense tells you, is so important. But on top of that, ingress, egress, being able to evacuate people, being able to evacuate military equipment and technology. Biden left us with only one air base, and it ended up only one airstrip in Kabul. And heads should roll for that decision alone. Then on top of that, there's been so much lack of communication between the woke Blinken State Department, the woke generals in the Defense Department, and Biden as the commander in chief. And a lot of that, when you put it all together, it ended up in the result of young sons and daughters being murdered, being slaughtered. And that's what you saw with those Marines, the sailor from right here in Ohio, the soldier, and that blood from those young Americans, make no mistake about it, Mike, it is on Joe Biden's hands. Joe Biden should be impeached. His generals should be dismissed of command and pushed out of the military at the very least. I believe they should be court-martialed. There is blood on the hands of these generals, blood on the hands of the commander-in-chief. Heads need to roll. There has to be accountability for these families and for the American people.
Is it just because those three tactical decisions that you brought up, let's just focus on the generals, right? Those three tactical decisions are so obvious and it's so, like, how could you possibly fail? Give me some insight. Like, do you think, what were they thinking? Did they miss something? Did they assume the best? I'm trying to think the air base, right? Like, did they really think that the Afghan army was going to hold the air base so they didn't? Give me the best case scenario for these guys.
Let me tell you what Biden's generals and Biden's Pentagon was thinking about for the past 8 months. They were thinking about instituting critical race theory in the military, which is insane in and of itself because it actually divides our troops and our young people down racial lines. It's the exact opposite of what Martin Luther King preached. They were interested in pushing transgenderism and, there's 23 genders and you could pick your gender and all that garbage. They were interested in pushing that in the military. They were very focused on all of this wokeness instead of being focused on war fighting. And when you have a U.S. military where the culture is set by the commander-in-chief, the culture is set by the generals, and the commander-in-chief and the generals are focused on wokeness instead of war fighting, you end up having horrible decisions made, like shutting down Bagram Air Base and like some of the other decisions I just articulated. And listen, one of the things I think that's interesting and sad that we should talk about is the juxtaposition between Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who I think was a traitor when he, in a partisan way, wearing the uniform of the U.S. Army, went after President Trump when President Trump was commander-in-chief. Juxtapose that with Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Schiller, who I believe, this Marine lieutenant colonel, is a hero standing up for the troops and calling out the generals for lack of accountability and failure in their command. And he loses his command. And when you compare those two situations, it's just an illustration of a broke general officer corps in the military and definitely a broke Biden Pentagon.
I got 30 seconds. Back during World War II, generals were fired all the time. Of course, during the Civil War, they were fired all the time. Now no one's ever fired. And also, if you go way back in the day, the generals used to be in the front lines. We're heading in the opposite direction. Huh?
I agree. Listen, Mark Milley has to go. And a lot of the people in his command, I believe all of them have to go. And at the end of the day, though, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, he is the commander in chief. The buck stops with him. Biden either has to resign or be impeached. He has the blood of our sons and daughters, those that were blown up in Kabul, on his hands.
Josh Mandel is going to win the Senate race in Ohio. Josh, appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Mike.
Have an awesome day.
You too.
And instead, he's going to give a victory speech, talking about what a great peacemaker he is. True story. Mike Slater. See you tomorrow. Spread the word.